Okay, so we don't have a lot of time because I know people will want to get out to lunch, but I just want to briefly, there's a bio of each of the people up here in the brochure, so I actually direct you to that. And I'll just give the name, you know Pio Aguirre because he just spoke. This is Tim Hewitt, who is legal counsel and one of the co-founders of the Arizmendi Bakeries. We've loved the goodies, by the way, that we've been eating every day. And Carmen, you're with City University of New York, and I'm going to ask you a question almost right away because I'm very interested in something you've just done. And Michael Peck, who you just heard, and Joseph Tuck, who is the CEO of Alvarado Street Bakery, probably the most successful cooperative in the U.S., I think. Very, very exciting place, and everyone should be eating their bread. So one of the questions I had right away, and I will ask everybody something, but Carmen, I think Michael had introduced me to Carmen and told me about what she had been doing in New York. And I'd like you to explain briefly, if you can, what's happening with the funding for cooperatives in New York and how you've worked with de Blasio.
Sure. So thank you, Georgia and Michael and Libby for giving me the opportunity to be here and to speak with you and learn from you. There has been a lot of creative energy and excitement around worker co-ops in New York City that has existed for a while, but we are actually now at a point where we had transition in city council and a more progressive city council and was able to actually work with them to quickly bring them up to speed on what worker-owned cooperatives are, as well as to get their support in terms of us, the coalition, securing a $1.2 million grant from New York City, which is a small amount when you think of New York City's budget, but it's still a significant amount, especially because it's the largest municipal investment of that sort into the cooperative movement. And they are definitely thinking that this is something that's going to continue and to grow, and now we're working on the state assembly. And one of the things when we were kind of, including myself, leafleting at city council was that the mayor, de Blasio, walked by and he's like, "Oh, what are you here for and what are you doing?" And we were like, "We're here to promote worker-owned cooperatives." And he was like, "I love worker-owned cooperatives." And we were like, "We're quoting you on that all over the place." So with that funding, we have a coalition of a number of different groups, including technical assistance providers, actual co-op developers, as well as Co-op Academy educational components, and the working world that also offers financing. So we have a good group of people in the coalition, as well as One Worker, One Vote, and are hoping to make this a huge success so that we can continue to get the funding and also increase and grow the funding.
And then copy you in other cities. So thank you, Carmen. So things are happening. I think I'll go to Tim next because we've all been eating these goodies. So Tim Hewitt, I would be interested to have you talk a little bit about the development of Arizmendi and maybe even to tell about how the interaction helped the San Rafael store that we're getting all the goodies from. The intercooperation, I mean.
Sure. So our project actually grew from studying the Mondragon cooperatives.
A little more into the mic. Oh, here, take.
Okay. So our project grew from studying cooperative networks, particularly the Mondragon network, but Italian networks as well in other countries, because there's a very vibrant cooperative movement in the United States, but very few worker co-ops. So we're trying to figure out why they were successful in other places in the world, particularly the Basque region. And realized that what had been happening in the US is we would develop one bakery, and then the next thing would be a bookstore, and the next thing would be a bike shop. They didn't have anything to do with each other. And what the BAST really did was they grew from success. They would learn one thing, and they would start another business that was related to that business. They would buy from that business, but they'd also sell from outside. So that was one of the things that we learned, and also that they had cooperation among cooperatives. So an example of that would be with our San Rafael Cooperative, where, like the Mondragon cooperatives, if a cooperative is not doing well, the rest of the cooperatives can come in and try to help relaunch it and save it. So that's what happened with this cooperative. We had actually, this was our 6th cooperative development, and it wasn't doing well. The first group wasn't coming together, so we got veteran bakers from the different bakeries to come in and help them relaunch and hire a bunch of new people, and now it's a success. So to my knowledge, it's the first one in the United States where a bunch of cooperatives came around and actually saved an existing cooperative and made it a success. So we're really trying to take those lessons from the Mondragon cooperatives and apply them in the U.S. context.
Yeah, I think that was such an interesting model. They have 6 different bakeries around the Bay Area, and that was the newest one. So it was, I think, interesting how this intercooperation principle, which is part of Mondragon, helped you. And I'm going to go to the ones who haven't been here and spoken first, Joseph Tuck, because I think Alvarado Street has done such a remarkable job going from kind of a hippie commune business in the 70s to the most successful cooperative. So I'd like you to tell people about how you got there, how the leadership evolved, and what the salaries are and what people are getting now who are worker members and how that all comes together.
Does this one work?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I wasn't sure. That was a loud voice. I just want to stay to Georgia because my title is no longer CEO. I am CEO
Shocking.
Emeritus.
Oh, emeritus.
And it's interesting to hear Pio talk about, because our worker co-op, like Tam's, reflects a lot of those principles of transparency and trust. And, to your point, that really kind of is what made us, when people ask us what our economic advantages are, it's just because we don't need a lot of managers. It's basically simple, and so the only thing I would say that we're different than Arizmendi in some ways because our missions are a little bit more myopic because of the way we culturally grew, which we wanted to become a model of what Georgia was talking about, where we could converse with any type of factory and say, we guide ourselves, we use democratic principles, but our worker members make, well, the average right now is $35 an hour. Our worker members, it's funny because I'm kind of jumping all around. The salary structure used to be 3-to-1, but with my retirement in a gigantic succession issue, the worker members had to vote a larger percentage on the salary rate. This is just kind of the new stuff of how a group of workers had to vote for somebody to get more money, which is kind of a difficult thing to do because in our system that comes right out of everybody. The way our system works in terms of what we call gain sharing, which we share all our profits above 8%, one person, one share, and that works out to be about $30,000 a year for each and every worker. So it's kind of a number when anything, so any cost, worker members know that if ingredients prices go up and we can't pass along, we're gonna make less money. And in this case, if indeed we think that, or the board of directors presents to the membership, because the membership in our world controls wages, they more or less agreed to vote to change that structure. And it's very interesting because on the screen was the Mondragon 7.5-to-1, saying, hey, we're still lower than Mondragon, we must be okay, type deal. So anyway, quickly we grew from being a small, we didn't know about the Mondragon model when we first started, to be kind of honest, and then we learned about it. We just wanted to kind of, control our own life, and we were more a collective that then learned about worker cooperatives, and then in our evolution, because we were run very collectively, but for us, it wasn't the most economically viable way to run ourselves on some level, because all we did was fight, and we really needed to make bread. And well, process is process, but as we learned about how the Mondragon model existed, we started to emulate a lot of their their management practices and embraced for us the concept that participatory democracy and having a system of more delegation of responsibility would work for us in terms of, again, our goal was to create a conversation that we could have in larger formats about how workers can get paid. You know, as our average wage now, if you look at it from the average non-exempt, that's not salaried people, make $75,000 a year, and that does not include patronage dividends, which is the worker co-op concept of 1 hour, one share of the profits. So you take all the hours that everybody works in a co-op, you divide them by your hours, and that's the amount of patronage you get back or dividends. And we do redeem them on a 3-year, first in, first out, or FIFO basis, and that's about $20,000 in the year it's generated, but about 14 after taxes. So a worker member in reality makes about $85,000 a year. Plus we use, because we don't have, in our wonderful world of pensions in the United States, being a small business that grew and obviously grew on our own kind of sweat equity, once we had the ability, we started to use 14% of our profits and put it into each and every worker's 401k. So it isn't a defined benefit, but it's in there regardless of whether or not you put in money yourself or not. That's going to grow for you. And again, we have a medical plan that we've not changed the member or the worker contribution since 1986. So it's like $30 for your family. So again, I'm telling you some of the fruits of what happens. We do bake bread, and we actually thank everybody in here for paying our wages, because you do, and we understand that circle is really important for us. But it has been an interesting journey for everyone, and again, we've been very fortunate and lucky. But it's my belief that again, when you build a culture of trust and responsibility, the idea, people are never asking our place, what am I going to get when I leave? And I'm retiring, and I'm going to get the gigantic amount of money I put in, which was $1,000. I'm going to get back, I believe, in cash, at that time. And that's all I will get leaving the co-op after 33 years. And when people ask me that question, I said, what did you get? I said, a standard of living and a retirement. What else do you need? Kind of what Pio says. So, worker co-ops, which Tim's groups or Arizmendi and Alvarado prove, is they can work in our society and they can be very successful.
Now, you said you get $1,000, but what about the pensions?
Yeah, that'll work out. I don't mind saying what I've got. I've
No,
got.
you don't need to say. I just wanted to confirm that you get a pension too.
Well, I have
Yeah.
my 401k that a gigantic portion of it Alvarado put in, not me. Yeah, sure. I was going to tell you what it was.
Well, you don't need to. But that's the thing about Mondragon, too. They're so open about, well, here, I'll show you my book. I'll show you the money I have and I'm getting in my retirement. They're very open and transparent about it. Everyone is. I wanted to know if you, Michael, or Pio, have something you want to bring up about the local ones or about how any similarities between Mondragon, Pio? Do you have a mic?
No. I didn't understand you. ¿Qué quiere si tienes algo más a decir sobre lo que está pasando localmente aquí Euston? No. Tú primero.
Yeah. Primero.
Well, thank you very much for that great example and your great example. I think everyone's seen Shift Change, and what's so great about Shift Change is that there's so many U.S. examples now of enterprises following the Mondragon principles. One of the things that struck me coming back to San Francisco is the dichotomy the city is facing between the tech elite and the people on the street. And it seems like the city that has so many gifts is creating, a very stark two Americas quandary. And in our Cincinnati Union Cooperative Initiative, we have a union co-op called Renting Partnerships. And what we figured out, it's a union co-op, what we figured out is how to transform renters in public housing into owners of cooperative housing. And it turns out that public housing is expensive because people don't stay there. There's a huge turnover. And so if you can come up with different ways for people to earn equity by improving the public housing public housing situation, increasing value, putting that into a code, which we've been able to do, we now are facilitating people over a 5 to 10 year time frame earning enough money as renters to put a deposit down on a cooperative unit of that public housing and become an owner. And we think that these solutions are not rocket science. They're something that can be practiced everywhere. And perhaps our union co-op mentality of solidarity and sharing and all of us working together are better than just one of us getting a lot more than anyone else. That kind of mentality needs to permeate here in San Francisco, and perhaps through Praxis and other organizations and individuals that are represented here, we can take some of these ideas and start getting them out into the community.
I'm very sorry to say that we don't have any more time. Because of the regulations here, we have to be out of here, everyone out of here, before 1:30. Do you want one thing? Yes, you can say one quick thing.
I like to see in this meeting and in the US that you are making or asking questions yourself about the future, about how to involve or develop the business and how the values of as you are high speed in a highway and you have an accident because you are driving very fast, and you survive, you start to think about your responsibility and how to manage in the future your own life. And in Europe, we are living in a bus that they are driving someone and he has the responsibility. Nobody thinks about the future, about how to develop more the welfare for everybody. And I think you have an important difference with Europe because you ask yourself about the future, about how to develop more instruments. You invest time to study Mondragon, you study other possibilities, and to make questions about how we improve, or how you improve, can you improve your conditions of life, and how you are in the second step that because you know that the capitalism has some troubles to be the way of a good way of life. Okay, this is different for you. For me, this country is very interesting. It's very different than Europe because in Europe we are sleeping still. Okay.
Thank you, Pio. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring the local worker-owns, because when we first went to Mondragon and we'd come back and we'd say all these wonderful things about Mondragon, and people would say, well, they can do that in the Basque region because it's socialist, or it's this, or it's that. And I thought, okay, well, we've got to learn about the ones here. So we can say, no, it's not just one culture, we can do it here too. So I think we have proven that with what you have done. I think Arizmendi's been here since the 80s. 97, okay, you've been here since the 70s, and now you're getting New York City on board. This is very exciting.